Welcome back to Kindness Stories, where every tale reminds us that kindness and courage can change the world in ways we never expect. If you love true stories about standing up for what's right, make sure you stick around till the end, and don't forget to subscribe and join our family of people who believe that even small acts of kindness can make a huge difference. It was a crisp Monday morning when Miss Amelia Carter, a 24-year-old freshly qualified teacher, stepped onto the grounds of Fairview High School. The sun was barely up, and a thin mist still clung to the football field. Amelia held her satchel tightly against her side, her heart pounding with excitement and a touch of nerves. After all, this was her very first day as a full-time teacher. She had spent years studying, training, and dreaming about this moment, picturing classrooms filled with eager students who would hang on her every word. Little did she know, Fairview High was notorious for its tough crowd of students who had made a sport out of bullying new teachers. As Amelia walked across the quad, she could already sense the eyes on her. Groups of students whispered behind, cupped hands, some giggling, some rolling their eyes at her neat appearance. Amelia was dressed simply, but smartly, a crisp white blouse tucked into a navy skirt. With her brown hair tied in a ponytail, she looked every bit the sweet new teacher that all assumed they could walk all over. Standing near the gymnasium entrance were three boys who would soon play an unforgettable role. In her story, Jake, the ringleader, was a tall, athletic 17-year-old, with a swagger in his step and mischief in his grin. Beside him were Mason and Kyle, his loyal followers. The trio had made it their mission to push every limit possible at the school. They had driven the teachers to tears the previous year and made another quit altogether. They saw Amelia as fresh, prey a new toy to break. When Amelia entered the staff room for the first time, she found Mr. Higgins, the aging head teacher, sipping his morning coffee. He gave her a tired smile. "Miss Carter, welcome to Fairview. I hope you're ready for an interesting term," he said, as if hinting at something she hadn't yet grasped. "Thank you, Mr. Higgins. I'm excited to meet the students," she replied, politely. Higgins gave a half chuckle. "Well, let's see how long that excitement lasts. These kids can be spirited." He didn't elaborate. By the time the morning assembly began, Amelia was standing near the edge of the sports field with the other teachers, clutching her notes. She had been asked to introduce herself to the whole school. This was tradition for new teachers, an introduction speech in front of nearly 500 teenagers, all dressed in identical uniforms but with wildly different attitudes. Principal Higgins stepped up to the microphone. "Good morning, everyone. Today, we have a new member joining our teaching family. Please welcome Miss Amelia Carter, who will be teaching English literature." Polite claps scattered across the assembly. Amelia stepped forward, cleared her throat, and began her short introduction, talking about her love for books and her hope to inspire students to find their voice through writing. Her voice trembled slightly, but remained steady enough to earn a few genuine smiles from the kinder students. But as soon as she paused for breath, Jake cupped his hands to his mouth and shouted, "Maybe she can teach us how to dress like my grandma." Laughter rippled through the students like a wave. Amelia froze, feeling her cheeks burn. Before she could recover, Mason added, "Or how to wear ponytails like a 6-year-old." More laughter. A few teachers shot the boys warning looks, but nobody said anything. Amelia took a breath. She had read about classroom management strategies. She knew she shouldn't let them see her sweat, so she forced a calm smile and said, "Thank you for your comments. Maybe we can have a lesson on respecting others." Jake leaned back, smirking. "We'd rather learn how to nap during your boring class." The students howled again, emboldened by the lack of discipline. Principal Higgins tapped the mic awkwardly, but it was clear he didn't have the energy to confront them properly. He simply motioned for Amelia to step down, and the assembly continued, as if nothing had happened. Walking back to the staff room, Amelia's mind was a storm of embarrassment and frustration. She had spent years preparing for this, yet in a single moment, these boys had made her feel so small. In the staff room, a few teachers offered sympathetic glances, but nobody said much. One whispered, "Don't take it personally. Jake and his crew are always like that. They just like to test the waters." But Amelia wasn't just any new teacher. Unknown to everyone at Fairview, Amelia had spent 10 years training in Judo. It had been her father's passion before he passed away, and she had promised him she'd always stand up for herself and others. She wasn't about to let a few teenage bullies ruin her dream. That night, Amelia went home and sat on her tiny apartment floor, staring at her father's old black belt draped across her bookshelf. She knew she couldn't physically fight her students, of course, but maybe there was another way. The next day, she walked into her English class with her head held high. Jake, Mason, and Kyle were all seated near the back, legs stretched out, arrogantly, their books unopened. Amelia began her lesson with enthusiasm, reading excerpts from Shakespeare and discussing themes of honor and courage. But Jake made a point of yawning loudly every few minutes. Mason dropped his pencil and made a show of crawling around to pick it up. Kyle kept whispering insults to the kids around him, who giggled and passed notes. Amelia ignored them as best she could, but it was clear they were testing her patience when the bell rang. Amelia asked Jake to stay behind. He swaggered up to her desk, smirking. "Got something to say, Miss Grandma," he mocked. Amelia looked him straight in the eyes. "Jake, I know you think you're tough, but I see someone who wants attention so badly, he'll humiliate others to get it. That doesn't make you strong. It makes you weak." Jake's grin faltered for just a second. Then he scoffed. "You don't know anything about me." "You're right," Amelia said. "But I'd like to. Meet me in the gym tomorrow after school. Bring your friends too." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What for? You gonna read us a bedtime story?" Amelia didn't flinch. "Just be there. You might learn something useful for once." Word spread quickly through the school. By the next afternoon, a small crowd had gathered outside the gym. Curious about what the new teacher was planning, Jake, Mason, and Kyle strutted in, laughing loudly, sure they were about to witness something pathetic. Inside the gym, Amelia stood barefoot on the mat she had borrowed from the pay teacher. She was dressed in a simple judo gi she kept in her car for weekend classes. The boys burst into laughter the moment they saw her. "What's this? Karate Kid, Teacher Edition." Jake sneered. Amelia smiled calmly. "Today, you're going to learn about real strength. You think being loud and cruel makes you powerful. A real power comes from discipline and respect." Jake crossed his arms. "And you're gonna show us by doing your little pajama dance?" She nodded once. "Jake, come at me." The crowd of students fell silent. Was she serious? Jake glanced at Mason and Kyle, shrugged, and lunged at her half-heartedly, figuring he'd scare her enough to run away. But in a blink, Amelia sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and flipped him clean over her shoulder. He hit the mat with a soft thud. Too stunned to react. Gasps and whispers filled the gym. Jake scrambled to his feet, face red with embarrassment and rage. He charged again. This time more aggressively. Amelia pivoted, swept his leg, and pinned him with a hold so fast he couldn't move without risking pain. "Do you see?" she said, her voice calm. "It's not about size or shouting. It's about knowing yourself, controlling yourself, and respecting others." Jake, breathing hard, realized he was completely helpless. When she released him, he sat there, panting, while Mason and Kyle stood frozen. "Want to try?" Amelia asked them. Both boys shook their heads, suddenly very aware that the sweet-looking new teacher was not someone to be underestimated. The next day, whispers about the judo demonstration spread through the entire school. Some students laughed at Jake for being tossed around like a rag doll, but most were simply shocked into a new kind of respect. When Amelia entered her English class, Jake was sitting up straight, his books open. He didn't speak out of turn. Instead, when another student began mocking a shy girl for mispronouncing a word, Jake actually told him to shut up. Mason and Kyle fell in line too. They still had their swagger, but they no longer dared to openly disrespect her. Over the next few weeks, something amazing happened. Jake approached Amelia after class one day, awkwardly scratching the back of his neck. "Hey, Miss Carter, you think you could teach me some of that judo stuff?" She smiled warmly. "Of course, Jake. Come by the gym after school." Soon, Amelia was hosting a small self-defense club for any student who wanted to learn. It became a safe place for kids who felt powerless to find confidence. Even some of the teachers started joining in, curious to see what had changed the school's biggest bullies into cooperative students. By the end of the term, Fairview High felt like a different place. The students still tested boundaries teenagers always do, but the mean-spirited culture that had festered for so long began to fade. Rumors about Amelia's throat became legend. And as for Jake, Mason, and Kyle, they still had their rough edges, but they had learned to channel their energy into something positive. Jake even competed in his first local judo tournament, with Amelia there to cheer him